Let's start today with the simple present tense. Now, what is important to remember is whenever you want to use a verb tense, no matter which one, is when and how to use it properly. About the simple present tense, you want to use it to express an opinion, to state a fact, to mention a preference or feeling, to describe a habitual situation, or to talk about a routine. In the simple present tense, there's really one rule that you must remember. In the third person singular, the verb will take S at the end, and you ought to pronounce your S also at the end. That is for the affirmative form. In the affirmative form, or simply with the simple present, there are keywords that you will notice are always used with the simple present, such as generally, every day, every week, every month, every year, usually, frequently, often, never, always, and some others. These are the main ones. Also, in the affirmative form, there are some spelling rules that you must remember. If the verb ends with Y, you will see there are two possibilities for writing the verb in the third person singular. If your letter Y, so that is if the verb ends with Y, but the Y is preceded by a vowel, you will just add S to the verb, such as play, plays. Just add S, because A is a vowel. In the second example, your letter Y will be preceded by a consonant this time. In this case, you will drop the Y and add IES at the end. Example, the verb study. So D precedes Y. It is a consonant. So then I would drop the Y at the end of study and write IES instead. Study, studies. There's another important spelling rule to remember. If your verb ends with O, you will add ES at the end. Like in the example, go equals goes. If the verb ends with CH, like search, you will also add ES at the end. Search, searches. In this case, the pronunciation sounds like is at the end. If the verb ends with SH, the same rule applies. Finish, finishes. The verb ends with S, pass, passes. The verb ends with X, fix, fixes. Or with Z, buzz, buzzes. The same rule applies. Here's the pattern to follow in the affirmative form. The pattern is very simple. Subject, verb, object. The subject goes before the verb, and the object goes after the verb. The verb needs to be conjugated according to the subject. So if my subject, Julie, is the third person singular, my verb will need S. Julie eats, and the object is whatever goes after the verb, her breakfast. In the second example, the subject is everything that comes before the verb, so Julie and her brother. So, as you can see, there's no S to the verb eat because my subject is plural. And for the object, same thing, it comes after the verb. Julie and her brother eat what? Their breakfast. Now, let's go to the negative form. In this case, you need to remember that you will need an auxiliary. In the simple present, there will be two choices. You will either use do if your subject is I, you, we, or they, and you will use does if your subject is in the third person singular, so he, she, it, or any subject that can replace these pronouns. Of course, you want to write in the negative form, so you will need your keyword not after the auxiliary. Then, very important to keep the action verb in the infinitive form. So no S to the verb. In the negative form, the word order is the following. You will find your subject to start your sentence. Then you will have to choose which auxiliary should be used. Is it do or is it does? It depends on your subject. You have to make your agreement with the subject. If my subject is the third person singular, I will choose does. If not, I will choose do. Then you have your keyword not because we're working with the negative. The verb, as mentioned before, has to remain in the infinitive form, so no S. And then at the end, you can complete your sentence with the object. Example, Julie, third person singular, so I chose does to agree with my subject in the third person singular. Not because it is the negative form. I keep my verb infinitive, so eat will not take the S. My S is here now, not there. And the object, her breakfast, is found after the verb. If we take the second example, Julie and her brother, so we remember that we could replace Julie and her brother by they if we wanted to. So the subject is plural. That's why I chose do instead of does to make the agreement with my subject, Julie and her brother. Once again, I will find my word that makes my sentence negative, not. My verb is in the infinitive form, and then at the end of my sentence, after the action verb, I will find my object.